Assalamu alaikum, ladies and gentlemen. Thanks for having me today here. Inshallah, today we are gonna dive into a fundamental of threat hunting or threat intelligence, especially how to hunting the adversary infrastructure. Okay, because the attackers always need infrastructure to hosting the malicious payload or command and control server CNC, or we can say C2. So inshallah, we will build a great fundamental or foundation of cyber threat hunting, because nowadays threat hunting is so popular, threat intelligence is so popular, but still there are some people out of there, they cannot actually understand what is it and why it's important and how to gonna start. Because threat hunting or threat intelligence, it's a have a like a networking. Okay, networking is actually mostly theoretical, just definition without practical. It contain a practical, of course, but mostly it's a theoretical, like what's IP address, what's HTTPS, what's the FTP, SSH, and their ports and so on, and why they use it by attackers. But when it comes to practical, it may give us some lacks to security researcher or even the student who interested into a networking. So I have decided to create this a short slides, but contain a deep knowledge and give the people a foundation how to actually start investigation the payload is, how to hunting the C2 infrastructure, or why it's important and what is necessary. So, first of all, who am I? I'm a Dior Saidi Ali Security Operations Center with Spectre Block. We are actually based on UAE and Australia. We are mostly working on blockchain security, penetration testing, and red teaming and malware analysis. So my position actually is divided between DFIR and SOC and malware analyst. But actually, I'm interested to investigating a malware, so that's why I have wrote. That's why I wrote a malware. And actually, I did a malware reverse engineering for fun. Sometimes for writing article and publishing stuffs on internet. And actually, international speaker. I have already spoke at Arab Cybersecurity Conference in Cairo, and also Deep Security Conference in Vienna. Also, Suleimania Cybersecurity Conference in Iraq. So our table of content, it's contain a wide range of interesting topic, like introduction to threat hunting, what threat hunting is, why hunting adversary infrastructure, key concept to C2 server, pilot hosting, and droppers, and actually understanding the threat landscape. Because without understanding the threat landscape, threat intelligence, or even analyzing a malware or cyber threat hunting is not make a sense. Is not make a sense. The analyze code by Santosu, um, to know your enemy, you have to be your enemy. Okay, so you have to know your enemies. You have to know your adversaries. You have to know what their component, what their structure, TTPs that they use to their attacks. So we have to know our enemies to build a great defense. So it's a simply we are providing thinking offensive to build a defensive. So then we will move to adversary infrastructure, how attackers set up a C2 server, what the technique, their tactic, their methods, like a DGA, domain generation algorithm, like a DDNS or dynamic DNS, and so on. And also how we can track a pilot hostess. The pilot hostess, guys, is a different than C2 server. Okay, pilot hosting is a different than C2 server actually. So then we will start into most interesting part. It's a hunting C2 server. How we can hunting with no paid services. It's a only public platform like VTrack, ThreatFox, Ural House, and so on. So, of course, we have to know our structure for whom. Our audience, our target is a malware researcher, threat hunter, or threat intel, or actually anyone who interested into security researching. Um, in a chapter one, we have to ask a great question. Okay, so what threat hunting is? So actually, threat hunting is a process of actively searching of a cyber threat inside your network, inside your organization. So, threat hunting actually, we can make it simplified to hunting a threat artifact or a sign of threat is or compromising in your network and in your organization, in your companies. It could be network logos or files and so on. So the hunting could be what? What can be hunting? So we have to know what is our goal, what we have to hunting. So hidden threat like a malware, ransomware, or unauthorized access. Okay, maybe attacker brute force it our RDP or SSH or FTP and so on, and maybe investigating the unusual network behavior, like a sign of indicator of attack or indicator of compromise, because we have to know the indicator of compromise is a different than indicator of attack. Indicator of compromise, that's mean like a reactive defense. We have the proactive defense and we have a reactive defense. Reactive defense means take an action after your organization or company has been compromised. But actually, proactive defense is a take action before your company or organization or company or network infrastructure will be compromised. So, actually, threat hunter, if they are focused on proactive defense, they hunting for sign of attack. So, I will make it simple for you. Indicator of attack, that's mean you are not compromised, but someone try to compromise your network. But indicator of compromise, that's mean you are investigating on something that compromised your network. It could be a pilot, it could be brute forced or unauthorized access. Okay, so simply we are hunting for unusual network activity or unauthorized access, or we are hunting for indicator of attack, and we are hunting for some malicious activities, logs, and so on in our company infrastructure. So actually, they are a nice question. They are a great way if you want to be a great hunters. You have to ask a question: why should I hunt? So actually, it's a simple question and simple definition, but it makes a sense. It makes a sense actually. We are hunting to stop attack before they escalate. That is mean proactive defense. That is mean proactive defense. We are hunting for sign of attack to prevent the upcoming attacks. That's why it's important for any company or infrastructure have the threat hunter team. Okay, another one, preventing future attack. Okay, if we have a great threat hunter team, we can prevent a future attack, or maybe the attack that other companies or other organization has been infecting already. But before you have a proactive defense mechanism, you have a great security operations center, you have a great cyber threat hunter, you have a great threat intelligence, it may not work for your company. And also disrupting the attack campaign. Actually, it's a great way to stop attack campaign. For example, attacker generated a dozen of malicious domains and they hosted a different type of payload to different system architecture, like for Linux ELF, for Windows base 86 and 64, for Android or for iOS. Even for iOS, the samples may be still less, but Android, Linux, or Windows, they are highly targeted. They are in adversary scopes, so we can disrupt their campaigns, disrupt their, take down their infrastructure if we be able to hunting the adversary. And actually, maybe as a security researcher, you will reading the reports by Trend Micro, by Lookout, by Kaspersky, or any other vendors. Maybe you will thinking, oh wow, they are really brilliant, they are really smart. How they can actually try to take down the infrastructure or found other domains that malicious actors, or we can say the adversaries, are generated. Actually, it's a very simple. You just have to one mindset. You have to have a one mindset is finding one simple clue. It could be one IP address. Try to reverse it. Find other hosts that this IP is related. This IP is related. So that's why disrupted attack campaign, it's by hunting the adversary structure. Oh, we will gather the intelligence. We are doing some OSINT, and we can share with other organization and other companies if we hunting very well. So for example, there are guys hosted a malicious APK file that built with a spy node or DroidJack or ngrot or dark command, for example, with 11111 IP address. Okay, it's just a example. And if we spot this IP address, we can use it as IOC, an indicator of compromise, and then we are able to write a signature with a Sigma, with a Yara, to provide on a community, and they apply into the security product. Okay, because if we think about how the vendors, AV vendors, EDR, XDR, NDR, HIDS, and so on, they are working based on the rule. Most of the antivirus hunting spectrum of emulation or unpacking and hunting for strings or malicious Windows API import address table, they are rely on rules. If there are no rules for this pilot of the sample, there are no detection, because the antivirus without rules, they cannot thinking well. So that's why hunting adversary is a very well. Also, we can understand the attacker technique, TTPs, tactic, technique, and procedure. And in a future attack, if we same tactic or technique or procedure, we may realize this attack happened by this country, by this jackal groups or spider groups. And we can build more rules and provide more defense mechanism to prevent upcoming attack. So actually, we have to understand some key of concept in adversary infrastructure. We have a C2 server. It's actually somewhat, maybe others call it command and control server. Maybe others call CNC. And maybe someone else call a malicious domain, but it's not making sense. Actually, we can just say C2 server, okay? And C2 server is actually, it's like a house in the cloud. Is simply, it's like a house in the cloud is that this house have some guns. Each of guns have their own function. For example, the Kalashnikov one is trying to retrieve directories inside infected device, or maybe we say a clock guns, it's for retrieving a microphone sound for spying, espionage, and so on. Actually, the command and control server C2 is like a house, malicious actor hosting on the cloud, and they are act like a bot master and commanding the infected device. You know, before, if you are old school ones, There are NG-ROT, there are Dark Comet, there are other ROTs, there are remote access administration tool or remote access Trojans. The notification on infection back onto the software itself. But actually, nowadays the attackers they host their own malicious infrastructure on the cloud is because it's a more useful, or they can generate a dozen and dozen of the domains. And other ones, we have the pilot hosting. Pilot hosting is a different than command control server. Pilot hosting could be this dynamic IP address that attackers hosted their malicious payload and write a PowerShell commands or PowerShell codes to download this payload from the internet and run on the infection machine. For or in other ways, we can say, for example, attacker compromises a website and access the cPanel or uploaded the shell and then upload their putty.exe or calc.exe or notepad.exe and wrote a malicious macro and put inside the document and save it as .docum already enabled the macro. So this code is send a request into this payload, into this infrastructure, and download the payload and put it inside the temp file or app data and then execute it. So it's called the droppers. So the other term is dropper. What the dropper is it? Okay. So if you have experience in a malware analyst or analyzing a malicious files, it don't matter. It could be Linux based one, Android based one, and Windows based one, and so on. So there are some stages. We have a downloader, we have the dropper, and we have one chain malware. Okay, the dropper actually is an executable file that drop another executable file inside itself. For example, we have a one executable file. The attacker embedded the other executable file that's actual malware inside a resource section. And nowadays, embedding the payload in a resource section is a common ways. It's a true we have other ways like in a global variable and other places, but actually dropper will be embedded in a resource section. Okay, and in other hand, the payload hosting, when the attacker hosts this payload in one domain and instructed to download it with a PowerShell command or C# or Python or Ruby or Perl and C++ and so on, it's called the downloader. So that's a concept. We have a C2 server, command and control server. We have a pilot hosting, and we have the dropper. Okay, to provide a better defense, we have to know how our adversaries will act. We have to think like our adversary to provide a high mechanism of defense. Okay? Actually, when I say building a high mechanism of a defense, it's not I mean everything is secure. Nothing is secure, and everything is hackable, and everything is vulnerable by itself. So, but we have to take a reason. It's like a dying. There are no sources. There are no treatment to preventing someone doesn't die. But we can take some steps, take some reason to have a more longer life. Okay, and our work in a security landscape is for that. Nothing is secure. Everything is vulnerable, and more technology we will get, we are more vulnerable to cyber attack. But we don't have to stop to adversary will compromise our network, our smart house, our smart cities, our infrastructure, our electricity, our water power plant, and so on. So we have to know our threat landscape. We have to know what attacker trying to build and drop it into our network and so on. So we have to know, as a threat intelligence or security researcher or malware analyst, we have to know type of threat is adversary TTPs and attack vectors and adversary infrastructure. And when we will combine or bind all of them together, we can build a more stronger mechanism. So, in a type of threats, we have a viruses. It's a type of malware. We have a ransomware. We have a downloader. We have a clipper. We have a stealer, and so on. And we have a phishing. We have a vishing, smishing, and social engineering. They are also part of the social engineering, of course. And we have a TDOS. It's a DDoS attack for telecommunication services, and we have a denial of service attack, or we have a DOS actually, and we have a DDoS, and so on. And also, of course, we have an insider threat that's actually someone inside a company will breach or will try to compromise the organization or network infrastructure they work in. And of course, we have a whistleblower, we have an insider breach. It's another topic. And also we have to understanding about the attack vectors. What the common ways that attacker try to compromise. They will make an example. The attacker one. We have an attacker one. Okay, the attacker one. Mostly the attack vector is using n-day exploits, or use one-day exploits, or using maybe zero-day exploits. Actually, zero-day exploits is a known vulnerability. Even the vendor doesn't know about it. And we have an n-day vulnerability. This one, it's I don't remember actually, but it's maybe the vulnerability that the vendor is aware about it, but user doesn't apply the patch. And we have a one-day vulnerabilities is a vendor doesn't release a patch for it. It's actually available on Internet of Things IoT devices. And actually, we have to know about the adversary infrastructure. So, what the tools attacker use for their command and control or infrastructure in the clouds on the internet. So actually, there are some public tools out of there that they are acting as a post exploitation framework, or everything inside itself, like a Metasploit. So in Metasploit, you can interact with your season with a command line. And we have Armitage, is a GUI based off Metasploit framework. Even you can interact it with your victim, like an NGROD or other remote access Trojan tools. So we have a Cobalt Streak. So we have a PowerShell Empire. We have a Havoc. We have a dozen of other tools that adversary will use for compromising or post exploitation ways, or for their next step, of course. Or we have a Mythic also. We have a Kinan. We have a dozen of command and control server that built with a C#, PHP, or Python, and so on. Actually, it's in a nowadays we are in a AI ages. We can actually jailbreak the prompt and ask AI, hey, I wanna build a command and control server, and then hey, create other tabs for building a pilot. It's a clearly available nowadays. So what is the adversary infrastructure? Okay, so the image here will explain what I mean, and it's the image called the definition. So the adversary infrastructure is a house of the adversary in the cloud, or it could be a tools that attackers relying on it. Okay, attacker can rely on it to download other next stage of their malicious payload, or to interacting with the victim. So adversary infrastructure could be a command and control server, could be a pilot hosting server, could be a malicious IP addresses, or could be a malicious domain, or could be a web shell. Like if you are old school, we have a C100 and C99, and we have a WSO shell. So it could be also adversary infrastructure of adversaries, because when you upload a shell on the web service, you can actually do what you want. You can deface a website, change the index, upload the botnet, because they are great way actually. There are some cases that attacker will try to compromise a legitimate website and upload the shell or access the cPanel or crack it actually by brute force and so on. Or maybe they will rely on initial access broker to log in and then create another directory or another subdomains and upload the botnet files and create the database for it, because actually the botnet requires the database. So how the attackers set up a C2 server? So there are some way. It's maybe choosing a hosting infrastructure first of all. Maybe choose a Rexa, Namecheap, Bluehost, Hostinger, WebServe, or could be free hosting service like a Serve00. Okay, and of course sometimes it can compromise a legitimate website and access it with an initial access broker, or maybe buy it from other hackers out of there, and registering a domains or using dynamic DNS like a no IP. Again, if you are old school ones, when attacker try to deploy a computer infection attack, they need to set up a host, the dynamic host. There are no IP out of there, no IP still popular in the Middle East cases, and a server configuration. So the configuration could be uploading files on a web server. I will make a small example of it. There are a botnet called Blacknet. Okay, the Blacknet is a botnet that built with a C# and some PHP code, and it contain a builder. So you will connect the builder into the web server, and when you build a payload or Trojan, then obfuscate it or encrypt it and share on the internet, and the alert, or بالعربي is a التبليغ return to a web server. I can't speak Arabic, but it's very little. يعني تعرف عربية بس يعني مش أفتهم يعني كل الكلمات. So then encryption and obfuscation. Of course, without obfuscation and encryption, may the attack is not will be successful. Okay, because there are AV vendors out of there. Just they have a dozen of signature. Just in a last few years, I have found millions of samples in a virus total, just by trying to following the IP addresses that related on this malicious payload. So they have their own signature, they have their own rules, and nowadays the IV vendors are more advanced than before. They have a more mechanism and more features like machine learning based detection, AI, and heuristic and behavioral or signature based, and so on. So of course attacker should encrypt or obfuscate their payload. And because we have a dozen ways, we have a hex encoding, base64, we have a EXO, we have a dozen of way AES, DAS, and some encryption libraries that available inside the Microsoft Windows APIs itself. There are some articles in MSDN, Microsoft Developer Network. You can read about it. And so, what are pilot hosting server actually? We are defined it before, but it's a deep foundation of it. We are going to deep dive on it. So Pilot hosting, it's like a small house that hosting a malicious payload. You can imagine like a like a market, a small market that contain your payload. And when you have a key for your market, you can access the payload and use it to the wall. So the main purpose of a pilot hosting server is for storing malicious software for delivering payload to victim. If you remember, I talked and mentioned about the VBA or PowerShell codes that download the malicious payload into hosted pilot server and execute on the computer. So disgusting malicious file. So sometimes, okay, this file is came from legitimate source. Let's download it. And also for obfuscation communication. So I have forgot to mention there are proxy tunneling and sock proxy and dozen of ways to obfuscation or encode your communication, because nowadays we have a dozen of analysts that trying to investigation the network using a network miner, Wiresharks, Nmap, Zmap, and so on. Or they can use Angry IP Scanner or dozen of tools to find open ports and so on. Because of course the attackers sometimes make some mistake or misconfiguration that lead to find open directory of the whole pilot that prepare to a future attack. So what's the role of droppers in a malware delivery? So initial infection. It's a very very important one. So the main question come into your mind. So why the shell code itself it cannot be used as a payload? So because it's actually detectable, it's actually defined by vendors. So you have to use some other mechanism that I don't mention to bypasses those vendors or be a fully undetectable. And so having dropper will achieve this will achieve your goal. It make you want happen actually, because the dropper it may be contain a dozen of stages. I saw a malware. I saw one cases. um I have built a seminar on it actually to present in an international conference. The attacker wrote a malicious Go file. This Go file download another executable file that are written in C, and this executable file will download other executable file. So the dropper will be in a different stages. And also for pilot delivery, dropper actually can be used to bypasses AV vendor in some cases, even not at all. It can be also for evasion, as we mentioned it, to evade the evasion by passing antivirus vendors like Kaspersky, ESET, Avira, Avast, Norton, McAfee, and so on. So also it can be for persistence. Why it can be for persistence actually, guys? Because actually nature of dropper is not like an initial stage pilot. The dropper have to drop itself into some directories. It could be temp, it could be updata, it could be create other directory in C drive and put the files inside on it. I saw this case in a Casper malware. Casper malware is a very popular. You can read a report about it or watch the seminar or conference talks about it, and or maybe put this drop it file into user profile. So it can work in all for all users like a environment variable. When you put something into environment variable, it can work in a whole system. So common tactics that used by attackers. So it's actually simple one, but actually it work. Phishing. It's a just send you phishing. Maybe sometimes a security researcher or malware analyst or a SOC 1, so tier 1, tier 2, tier 3, and so on. Okay, the phishing is simple, I guess, but no, it's a wrong one, because there are smarter attacker out of there. There are nicest writing ways that make this phishing mail more legitimate, that you will not realize it's actually you have been phished. And traditional stuffing, actually traditional stuffing is like a tactic that attacker will not brute forcing your protocol, your SSH, your FTP, your RDP, and so on. it just actually it just actually get this credential of your network organization from stealer logs, from the breach forms, and so on. And of course, exploiting the vulnerabilities. Maybe there are some services on your organization, some misconfiguration, still unpatched, still unsolved. The attacker will take a benefit on it and exploit it. So malware resell. So actually, mostly if you look at other courses or other resources, they don't mention malware resell. So what is the malware resell technique that used by attackers? Malware resell technique is a technique that used by adversaries when they buy your machine from another attacker. Let's make a small example. Attacker A infecting your computer with an NGRI, and the attacker B want to buy your devices from the attacker A. So, okay, attacker B contacted the attacker A. Hey, I want to get this machine. Okay, the attacker A asked attacker B to prepare your payload. It could be Dark Comet, Hmadrat, and so on. And then installing your payload, your Dark Comet payload inside the machine, the victim that available on a remote access Trojan tool of attacker A. So it's a great technique actually. You don't need to prepare your payload. You don't need to obfuscation. You don't need to have a great mindset to delivery mechanism. So actually, the pilot hosting they are operate in different ways, like hosting malware in a dozen of links or hosts. So remember, it's not always attacker should to register a new domain. Sometimes attacker may upload the payload in GitHub or upload.ee or GLFO and Go file and other uploading services. It's sometimes I have tested this one, guys. Believe me, in a 1 hour red teaming simulation, I have uploaded the payload on upload.ee. So it worked actually because it have a direct download link. So that's what attacker want to have, and also for remote control, because sometimes the tracking payload or the pilot hosting actually it contain the post exploitation commands. It could be a simple one, but it contains like how Cobalt Streak. Cobalt Streak is actually contain post exploitation modules, and also it contains interacting with the victims with a season simply. So we can tracking the pilot host with a virus total. It's I have a blue-red the malicious IP, and actually it's a 3 vendors. So they are a technique that used by attacker. It's a very interesting. It's trying to social engineering your psychology, your mind. How is work? First of all, the attacker will upload the sample on VirusTotal, and it's a clean one, okay, and left it the operation for months or years. And when they operate, and will be disclosed or exposed on the internet, the analyzer or analyst security researcher came to VirusTotal and uploaded. So it's a, oh, it's a food one. It's a fully undetectable. But when you click the reanalyze in here, everything will be done, will be down, because the first of all attacker doesn't reanalyzing this payload for years, but when you do it again, it actually will be detected. So the other one is a URL house. URL house is a great one for finding a pilot hosting. For example, we have this IP address that hosting this executable file or this malicious domain. So regarding to tracking a C2 server, the VTrack is actually a great resources, and every day we'll get a new domains or new adversary infrastructure to hunt and look at it, like a supershell, like a hook botis, like a log botis, and like a Gumrah. Gumrah is an info stealer based on the web panel. And actually, you have to understand also the role of a C2 server in a cyber attack. So the role actually issuing the command, it can instruct your device if it affected by a malware. For example, retrieve the directory, open the camera, take a screenshot, establish the VNC to look at on your screen, like available on a team view or any disk or any other of remote tools. Also for exfiltrating data and coordination the attack. So you can also use the Shodan or Zoom Eye or Kensys to hunting the C2 infrastructure. So for example, I have this query, labels, login page, or label C2. You can imagine of this label as a title, http.title in Shodan, and login page and service port. Actually, the most botnets or panels use it 8080 port or 8080 or 18 by itself or 443. So I have found something interesting here. So I will try to zoom it. Oh no, it's not zoom it. So here, it's a supershell. Okay, supershell. It's an info stealer. Okay, and I'll try to use a URL scan, urlscan.io, to check that's actually is a login page or not. So actually, you can use feeder or URL house actually to finding a payload or malicious command and control server, and actually you can use through public resources like a C2 browser. It's actually work for Cobalt Streak payload is. And finally, so threat hunting for C2 infrastructure is essential for every security researcher or malware analyst or maybe network security, because when you identify the C2 infrastructure or pilot hosting, you can actually disrupting a cyber attack. And of course, the tools like a Shodan, Kensy, Zoom Eye, Nmap, or Angry IP Scanner, V2, Feeder, YellowHas, and ThreatFox can be a great ways to disrupt the campaign or identifying the attackers. And finally, thank you. So there are other resources you can rely on it for indicator of compromise. It's Intezer, it's a polyswarm.network, and OTX Oleum Violet. I think the name is like this.